This is Bokisch Ranches. And here on Tuesday, September 16th, are Graciano grapes, which Bokisch is crushing today. Hello, we're at Bokisch Vineyards in a new winery owned by Markus Bokisch here on the left, with his winemaker Elise Perry on the right. Bokisch Vineyards is a brand that specializes in Spanish wines, but Bokisch Ranches is actually one of Lodi's major growers. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Markus, but you farm about at least 3,000 acres of vineyards in 6 of the 7 Lodi AVAs. You sell to over 50 different winery clients, but you also make wine for Bokisch Vineyards, which specializes right now in Spanish varieties, although you're coming out with a new brand that will be non-Spanish. So, Markus, talk to us about the new winery.
Well, your facts are pretty much correct, and this winery is going to be housing not only the Bokisch Vineyards brand, which of course focuses entirely on Spanish varietals, which include Alvarinho, Garnacha Blanca, Verdejo, Verdelo, which is actually a Portuguese variety. For the reds, Tempranillo, Graciano, Monastrell, the list goes on, and in fact it's expanding. But it also is going to house our new brand, which is called Tizona. Tizona is a brand that's going to be making all of the wines that we've always wanted to make that are not necessarily Spanish. So our first Zinfandel is going to be released this December. We're probably going to be producing, we already have in barrels, some Malbec. And we're going to just have a lot of fun with different programs in the future as that expands. And this is the winery that that has been our shop for many, many years, and we finally converted into our winery. And it has essentially 3 different areas. One is the business offices. This area is the tank room. And then further to the north, behind that back wall, we have the new barrel room. Now the fun part about this development has been that construction didn't quite get done before the first vintage. And Elise has been an amazing winemaker, not only in making wines, but also as a great, shall we say...
construction manager?
Construction manager, yeah, I think that's the term. That's done here.
All right. Just take a few. Okay, Markus, what do you got here?
I've got a cluster of Graciano. And Graciano sounds like an Italian variety, but in fact it is from Spain. It's from northeastern Spain in an area called Navarra, or Navarra. And it has migrated over to the Rioja, which is one of the most well-known areas of Spain. And there it just kind of stayed and didn't do much until about 10 years ago when we brought it to California. It's a variety that has intense color, intense aromatics. I would liken it to a Petit Syrah in its versatility. Has a lot of dark forest fruit, blueberries, blackberries. And this is an idea of what the cluster looks like. It's at 26 bricks right now. The berries are generally kind of medium-sized, very loose, very resistant to most diseases. And it loves to have a very long hang time. Now we're having a very early season in California, but generally we pick this in mid-October. This year we're really lucky because we're picking it in mid-September. Fully developed, really delicious. And we use it as a blending component into our Tempranillo, which is typical of Spain. And we also do a varietal Graciano. We were the very first to do that in California, and ever since then we see a lot of our counterparts in Spain doing the same.
What's so distinctive about it this year there?
What's so distinctive about it?
This year.
This year? This year it has tremendous fruit development, and also this year on all the red varieties, and certainly typical of this, you'll see that it has a tremendous amount of color. If you look right here where I pulled the berries off, you can see how much color there is right there on what's called the pedicel. Lots of color. And the color tends to be a beautiful kind of red violet as opposed to more of a cherry red. Now the juice itself doesn't have a lot of color like most grapes, but you can see You can see right there, the color's starting to come out. But the skins have all those delicious colors. And then, the seeds are really big. Very typical of the Gracianos, the pips are really, really big.
Okay, Elise. Okay, we have Garnacha, huh?
Yeah, we have Garnacha. And Garnacha is a Spanish variety. It originated in the area of Aragon, which is the southern part of the Pyrenees, kind of halfway between the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. There's an area called Campo de Borja, Alto Moncayo, a lot of really interesting areas that are known for Garnacha. But it traveled a lot. Unlike the Graciano that stayed very focused in one area, the Garnacha traveled all over Spain, mostly northern Spain, and southern France. So it's kind of the same latitude where it typically does very well. It's a much tighter cluster, you can see, and it's prone to many more diseases because of that. Very tight cluster. In the areas where it doesn't get as much sun, it doesn't color as well. So it tends to be medium in color. Getting Garnacha this dark is very difficult, and we're very pleased with what Lodi can do for the Garnacha. There are different selections of Garnacha. There are Spanish selections, there are French selections. We focus on the selections that we've gotten from the Priorat and from the Rioja, where it's very well known. It tends to have some really nice red fruit characteristics like strawberry, and we like to utilize it in a bottling of Garnacha by itself, and also a little bit of it into some of the other varietals tends to heighten the aromatic and the fruitiness of the nose.
Cool. Marcus, talk to us about the vintage 2014.
A little bit about this 2014 vintage, which is the oddest and earliest vintage I have ever seen. So I've been in the business since 1989, so I've seen my fair share of vintages, and generally with early harvests you tend to get harsh tannins, physiologically unripe fruit, or you let the harvest wait longer and you tend to get more physiologically ripe fruit with a lot of alcohol because you have a lot of sugar conversion to alcohol. And so either way you get somewhat awkward and unbalanced wines. This year we have this incredibly early vintage, the earliest again that I've ever experienced. But oddly enough, we're finding that the pHs are coming in beautifully, the TAs are coming in beautifully, the colors on the reds are phenomenal. So we have incredibly well-balanced fruit, probably some of the best balanced fruit and numbers that I've ever seen for the Lodi area, combined with just a really early harvest. So we've had an interesting year. We've had a relatively warm winter. Bud break was, again, relatively early. We had one of the hottest Julys on record and one of the most humid as well, followed by one of the coolest Augusts, and then a pretty darn warm September. So it's just been an odd season, but for whatever reasons, it's led to what seems to be a pretty exceptional vintage so far.
You think previous vintages and drought might have had a big impact?
Well, you would think that with the drought in California, you would get smaller berries and maybe vines that were more affected by the conditions. But in fact, we saw more of that in 2013, because remember 2012-13 was a pretty dry year too. I think a lot of growers went into that season with a water deficiency that hurt the vines towards the end. I think this year, a lot of us growers learned a lesson and said, well, we better have a full water table before we begin the season so that the vines, be they dry farmed or otherwise, could survive the season very well. And I think combined with a better water status at the beginning of the season and also the higher humidity, I think the vines didn't suffer as much in terms of droughtiness or shutting down on hot days, and they just kept on producing and developing physiologically more hours of the day throughout all of July and August. So I think that led to these really well-balanced vines here in mid-September.
So Elise, deep thoughts on what you've been crushing so far?
Well, it's been amazing. Like Marcus was saying, we're seeing really good acids. I was pretty surprised. I've worked with the Liberty Oaks Tempranillo for several years now, and I have never seen the acids so in balance. The fruit is tasting wonderful. fermentations are going through with no problem, and everything is tasting wonderful. The color is amazing. The whites all had really beautiful acid and just beautiful flavors, and it's been a lot of fun being able to work with all of these varieties.
A lot of free run too.
A lot of free run we're noticing, especially with the whites. The free run juice coming out of the press was like nothing I've ever seen before. Just waterfalls coming out of the press. So that was pretty neat to see. That we're definitely getting higher yields.
Yeah, with less pressing, and I don't think that's just a phenomenon of our area. It's pretty much a phenomenon of most areas in California.
So at the rate we're going, you guys can take a vacation in October, okay?
Be able to go trick-or-treating.
It's a strange but wonderful year, isn't it?
It is.
It is.
Really great. Great first vintage.
All right.